All right, so I guess we get cracking. We did actually change the title of the talk without telling anyone. Huh? That's the title of the talk, yeah. I will neither attempt to pronounce nor explain it. I'll leave that to Alexandra. I do get to do the introduction. It's really, really great to be back here, and it's really great to see the event kind of grow and flourish. My shoes. Oh, this is a tradition that started at the last Camp KDE.
No, last Camp KDE you had a towel instead of pants.
Yeah, but I was also not wearing any shoes. I kind of opted out of the towel around my... But I am not wearing shoes. All right, so it's Jeff here, actually.
He went to run and grab some stuff.
All right. So at the last Camp KDE, Jeff gave a presentation about why organizations, and especially large organizations, want and need free software people, and why they're useful to these organizations. And we're trying to kind of expand a bit on that and see what we think are lessons that we have learned from our kind of queer and wandering and mysterious careers, such as they are. So we'll be looking at kind of where the two of us came from and how we got to be where we are now, and then we'll try and find some nuggets of wisdom in that. All right, so moving right along. When we were young, the thing is, actually both of us in previous lives were musicians, more or less professional musicians, from very different areas of music, but we were both doing music. And we ended up in, well, let's put it that way, we both have manager in our job titles, so we ended up being suits of a kind. Yeah, we think that there are many more people actually in free software that have these kinds of weird careers, and that it's actually a unique feature of free software to allow these kinds of careers. And yeah, so we'll try and shed some light on that. I think we'll start with your career.
Yeah, this is kind of silly. We have to swap the microphone here.
Hey, you have shoes.
Yeah, I have shoes. So yeah, well, we start with me. Maybe I should explain the title, because that was taken from an opera aria. That's Donizetti, actually. It's Norina, and it's So anch'io la virtù magica, which means even I know the magic things. So I'm not going to explain the whole area anyways. So that's where it comes from. Because my first life, I spent hours on training and singing and dressing up in huge clothing. Actually, I had much nicer photos, but I couldn't find them. They're somewhere hidden. And yeah, this was one of the stage performances. So I started with those big dresses and boring stories. Yeah, and ended up in IT. So this is a picture from last Dev Days in Munich, where we had the reception in the evening. And it's not a way that you can like plan. So it kind of moved in a way, and I took a certain decision when I said, well, at the point when I turned 30, I should have some kind of idea where my life is going to head, and theater was not it. So I decided to change paths, and I was lucky because I had started to move around free software before, and so that was my option. A lot of other people don't have that.
Yeah, so I started in a different place as well. I've been wanting to be a musician ever since I was about this big. I started out playing the flute because that was the only thing I could lift, and then when I got big enough to lift it, I started with the French horn because I thought that was just the coolest instrument in the world. So I spent a lot of time playing the French horn, but when I was about, well, 13, 14, priorities kind of shifted, and having something that's really shiny wasn't the top priority for an instrument. It was more about being, you know, desirable. So that is actually me, yes. This, you have to admit, is much sexier than a French horn. So I bought an electric guitar and decided to be a rock and roller. Went on to actually go to university, study music theory and things like that, and try and earn a living playing guitar. Did that for a while, recorded a couple of CDs, played a lot of live music, and I got very, very drunk. When I was about 25, I realized that that is actually a really rather boring lifestyle, and it's not where I want to be. It's not what I want to do. And I ended up doing this kind of thing. I'm a consultant now. I work for KDE, one of the sponsors of this conference. This is me teaching signals and slots to several hundred people at the last developer days. So I'm still on stages, but I'm usually on stages in suits these days. I'm also part of the executive team of the German subsidiary of KDE, so I do a bunch of talking on the phone and a bunch of wearing suits. This, by the way, is I'm also responsible for KDE's kind of KDE and free software involvement. So this is me in a very important business meeting with the newly elected president of KDE EV. So my job is really, really hard. Anyhow, that should give you an idea that basically, I mean, we have kind of serious jobs, but we never learned them. Neither of us was actually educated in what we do. So essentially what we're doing is we're just, you know, faking it. We're just kind of making it up as we go. And well, it's working out quite nicely. You know, they pay us continuously. So what is it that we actually do, and how do we manage this, and what do we bring to the table from what we've done before, right? Oh yeah, that one's yours.
Well, obviously, that's mine. So what we have learned, or what we figured that we have learned, is that we learned to deal with very complicated personalities. So from my perspective, when I was hired freelancing at a theater, I had to deal with very, very vain people. So you could never say like something like, oh my God, this dress is really ugly. Who put it on you? They would not go out on stage. Or you were taken aside before and said, you know, we all know those pants don't really fit, but don't tell him. So, okay. And so there's always a competition among who is the smartest, the best, the loudest, the most present, who is the one who stands in front, and who's the one who stands in back, because that means that you're kind of failed. And so we have learned to deal with those complicated personalities that are not always easy to handle. So from my perspective in Oslo, I have a whole floor of divas that need to be patted from time to time and tell, yes, that was brilliant. You have done a perfect presentation. So I'm exaggerating a bit, but I mean, it's the whole thing that of being in a position where you put yourself up on stage, and of course you want to be recognized for that. And committing is probably pretty much the same. So you're putting yourself up somewhere and someone can look at you and then say, isn't that a typo? Right, one of the first things.
Improvisation. If you're a rock and roll musician, since you're drunk all the time, busy partying, you never have time to practice. That mostly means that when the guy calls and says, can you come and play this really difficult bit for my new record, or can you come and play with this hip-hop band live, mostly you just have to kind of wing it, because you know you have usually zero time to practice or to prepare. So you develop improvisational skills, right? You try and get like the basic stuff right, and you kind of fill it in between. This is something that in the industry that we are all in, most of you are in, the IT industry, is something that comes in extremely handy. Not to be scared of having to improvise and come up with something on the spot, and even developing some liking for that, and that whole atmosphere of things not being totally nailed down and quite flexible. That's something I think we have in free software a lot as well, right? This sense of improvisation and of just going off into a different direction with something on the spot. So I find that dealing with free software people, knowing about improvisation, how to do it, is a really handy skill.
Next point, delivering under pressure. So when you are on stage performing, you have prepared before and you have practiced hours and hours and hours, at least as a classical musician like me, not like him, right? He just went out. So, but yes, so serious people like, opera people, They prepare, ideally. So, but the pressure is the same, right? You're thrown out of there, and then it has to run with the show. You cannot say in the middle of it and say, ah, I forgot my lyrics. That's not going to happen, right? It just goes. And the pressure that is created there is immense. So you have to learn to keep calm and go ahead, although things fall apart around you. Like the choir doesn't start, or the orchestra is completely somewhere else, you forgot your lyrics. It has to, the show must go on, basically. And that comes in handy various times in our jobs where we like, you know, we have to deliver tomorrow, and you know you will not make it. So you have to come up with something.
Believe it or not, even rock and roll is actually a lot of work. And until you get to the point where you can go up on that stage and give a reasonable impersonation of a rock and roll star, you have to spend 10 years drudging away, right? Getting that instrument under control. And how many of you actually play an instrument? See, this is something else we noticed. There's just so many musicians in free software. It's one of the things we realized while we were preparing this. Lots and lots of musicians, classical musicians, jazz musicians, rock and roll musicians. Seems to be something. I don't know if it's, you know, the musicians being attracted to free software or the free software guys being attracted to music. Something is in there. But that's another kind of commonality between what programmers have to do and what musicians have to do. There's a lot of discipline involved. You have to practice a lot, and you have to dig and dig and dig and dig until you get to the bottom of something. So coming from music, I actually found it much easier to do the kind of sit down and get it done work that we often have to do in our day jobs, because from the classical training that I got and from the rock and roll training, I've learned to be very disciplined in my approach to getting stuff into my head.
This is another example. I picked the ballet picture there because dancers need all of this to an extent that you cannot even imagine. And they really, really love what they're doing because they are not really paid. I wouldn't call that salary what they get. So it's the serious commitment to something that you really, really love and that you really want to do. And I think that's very, very similar to the software development, especially when I look around the friends I have who are working in this business. What are you doing in your free time? Well, given you have free time, right? So you're working in front of your screen to earn money, and then you continue in the evenings because then you have your fun project going on, right? So that's basically the same. We spend all of our time on practicing, improving, and going ahead and trying to make money out of it. And but it's not for the money, right? You're not in for the money. You're in because you love what you do. And that's a very similar thing that we figured.
I think this has something to do with the way the brain is wired. There are just people that need to get results right away, right? Otherwise they will drop it. And there's people who are cursed or blessed with a brain that allows them to appreciate what's known as delayed gratification, where you do something and you know you will not be rewarded for it right away, but at the end of the day, you know, somewhere down there, you will get it done. And with music, it's like that a lot of times, because say you're writing a song, right? You got that one line and it's really great, but you know you'll have to fill another 3.5 minutes with something, right? And no amount of beer will inspire you to come up with these lines. So you work on it and work on it and work on it, and you know there's a good song in there, and eventually it'll come, and eventually you'll find that other line that will fit with the first line, and maybe after 3 years or something, all of a sudden there it is, right? And then it's another year or so until you can actually show anyone and, you know, have a band actually play it. So it's a very long, very delayed thing. And software, and especially free software, is a lot like that as well, right? Because you might not even write anything that will ever be used by anyone, right? You might write something that you like and you end up not releasing it, or you release it a lot later, or you have to write that class so you can write that other class, or you can write that module so you can give it to someone else who might eventually find time to use it, right? Good example of this is there's a class in KDE Libs called Threadweaver, which Mirko put in at the very first Academy, 2004, I think. And it ended up being used for the first time in something publicly released, I think, in 2007, right? you have to kind of like that.
Yeah, well, musicians spend a lot of time on learning something, right? So from my perspective, I get a request to show up at a certain concert, so I have to learn the lyrics, the music, everything, and I have to keep it by heart. And maybe there is something in there that I haven't dealt with before, so I have to learn that. I have to take lessons with teachers, and I have to work on it. So it's constantly improving your skill set. And yeah, sometimes it goes wrong, right? So you try and fail. And that's another point where I think that is very similar, that I have the impression that it is important to fail. And I think in software you're pretty much allowed to fail, sometimes even in public. Just like musicians, because I went on stage various times and failed miserably. So then you know, well, next time, maybe, it's going to be better. But the skill set that you are working on is improving over time and over time and over time. And I think that's a very similar approach to programming or, well, software in general.
So as we've alluded to a few times by now, we think that there are quite a few parallels in the way that people approach music and learning music and being good at music and loving music and being defined by what you do, which is music or software, right? So there's something particular about these kinds of people, and as we said, there is a big overlap between the two groups for some reason. So we think that there is something in there, and that, as Jeff said last year, that there is something that we can bring to organizations as musicians and software people, because we have this peculiar way of going about things. So we want to look at some of the things that we think fall into that category.
And this is my slide. So this is a string quartet. They don't have a conductor. They spend most of their rehearsal time on being on the same point at the same time. So what you learn there is to get a certain feeling for the vibes that go in a group of people, in a smaller group or a bigger group, and that you train your ears and train your feelings there so that you can work together. And I think that's a very important point, because in the groups we work together, especially when we're thinking about all those distributed teams we have spread all over the globe, you need this certain feeling of something is not how it should be, or maybe he's upset, did I say something wrong? And when you have this kind of feeling, because you pay attention, right, it gets you quite a bit further than with just like, well, it's I'm saying where it heads and everybody has to follow. That's not how it works.
Uncertainty, certainly something that happens in rock and roll. But it also happens a lot in free software. We can't assume that there will be a manager who says, and this is the way it'll be done, right? You have to accept the fact that you're dealing with an extremely volatile group of people, with an extremely volatile process. There is no process, or it might change at any time. So you have to kind of jump in and just go with it and see what you can make out of the situation. And be flexible about, you know, the kinds of parameters you're working on and the kinds of conditions you're subjected to. So I think that all of us, or most of us, actively like a certain amount of volatility in our work, and we don't like to be in a situation where everything is lined up and nailed down, right? So, and if you bring that into an organization, you can shake it up, right? Because especially big organizations tend to be rather static, and they don't particularly like uncertainty and instability and volatility. So, because it's dangerous for most people, right? It's not something that they associate with positive energy. But for most of us, I think this is positive, right? This is something we like.
Opportunities, another big thing. So we're looking at something and we spot an opportunity. That's important for musicians, because when you're in a concert, you have to interact with your audience and you have to feel the opportunities. Like for a singer, you have those nice fermatas. Everybody knows the tenors who keep their high Cs forever. That's also spotting an opportunity. Can I take it or can't I? So is the conductor paying attention? are the colleagues paying attention, because they might have to interact with me in a way. So it's always being kept on your toes and waiting for the opportunity to show up, just like the girl there waiting for the surfer to get the right wave, right? So I think that is very, very similar and very useful in a working environment where you have to deal with changing paths, I would say, because it's not straightforward. You may have to reconsider how your plans and if they work out. But if you're not paying attention to the opportunities that show up, you will not be able to react. And I think that's, yeah, a very important skill to have. Oh, wait.
Yeah, this is the KDE people in the room laughing because
take the specifications from the customers and you bring them down to the software engineers. Yes, yes, that's right. Well, I just have to ask, why don't the customers just take them directly to the software engineers? Well, I'll tell you why. Because engineers are not good at dealing with customers. So you physically take the specs from the customer? Well, no, my secretary does that, or the facts. So then you must physically bring it to the software people. Well, no. Yeah, I mean, sometimes. But what would you say? You do. Well, look, I already told you. I deal with the goddamn customers so the engineers don't have to. I have people skills. I am good at dealing with people. Can't you understand that? What the hell is wrong with you people?
right, people skills, right? So now that we've praised, you know, all that the things that we bring from our previous careers and all the things that you bring to big corporations, we kind of have to face the fact that there is a certain amount of lack, right, in engineering in general, and we found that by virtue of having been musicians, where you have to develop these kinds of skills, otherwise you'll not get jobs, because you're dealing with the divas and you have to deal with all the volatility and all of that. So unless you develop those skills, you will not make it. And those very skills come in extremely handy. So we figured, you know, we might give you some ideas of how to acquire them. So this is a picture from a snowball fight that happened in a park in Berlin. It was organized via Facebook. There's about 500 people that showed up. There's 2 boroughs of Berlin getting into a big snow fight. Huge amount of fun. It's what we like to call a massively multiplayer offline role-playing game. And the reason why we chose this picture is because we think free software kind of is like that, right? It's a massively multiplayer role-playing game. Basically, you can just show up and do whatever you want to do and be whoever you want to be, right? If you want to be an artist, even though you're actually a software developer, you can, right? If you want to be a project manager or a marketing person, you can. If you want to be a hacker, although you used to work at Starbucks, hey Katrina, you can, right? That's Katrina, she runs our US operations. Another winding road there. In any case, so it's basically, there's no barrier of entry, right? It's just like logging onto World of Warcraft. You pick whether you want to be a wizard or whatever the hell they have there. Do they have wizards? I don't even know. In any case, you just pick what you want to be and what you want to do, and then you still have to be good at it, right? Because if you're no good at it, you won't survive either. But you can try, you know, you can have a go. And free software is kind of like that, you know. Anyone can come and play, which means if you want to do something different, for example, you used to be an opera singer and now you want to be community manager, or you know, used to be a rock and roller, now you want to be a programmer, you can just show up and try. And that's an extremely unique thing we have there. Because not only does it allow people to come in and do new things, turn their life around, completely change careers, it also allows everyone who's already in it to explore some other aspects of their personality, to see, you know, how am I any good at doing project management? Am I any good at doing marketing? So what we're trying to say is there is an immense opportunity for people already involved with free software or trying to get into free software of just trying out something new, just developing some other skills that they didn't even know they had. Because you can, right? You can fail, you can make mistakes. There's no multi-million-dollar project behind this. So yeah, you can just see where it takes you, right? In other words, just try, right? So if you think you're no good at public speaking, give it a go, right? There's so many opportunities to go to conferences even without paying a dime and talking about stuff to try and become better at presenting. Or if you think you should, you're getting kids, or you're planning to, and you're thinking you don't want to get stuck in engineering for the rest of your life, but you're really no good at, managerial stuff, and you have no idea how to acquire that. Free software is a great way of just, getting some experience with some other things that might get you other places. So just have a go, right?
I would like to add something here. Because I was always struggling with this kind of preconception that, coming from a complete angle to this hardcore software stuff is not going to work, right? How could it? You don't know anything. You don't even know how to code. I mean, and I was thinking like, but I could at least try. And of course, it was not easy to get in, and it was not easy to get the straight path. But I tried various options, and it turned out that I was better at people than other. So it made sense to not go into the direction I was not good at, right? So I went into the other direction. But I had the chance to try various things. So I organized booths, I organized sprints, and they worked out, but I would say my talents are elsewhere. Or I like doing different stuff. But I had the chance to start doing that. And I guess that was the same for Till, in a way, to just start hacking and stop playing guitar, because he was not satisfied with himself.
Right. Another thing that we think is unique in free software, this, by the way, is a beautiful visualization that Paul did of the KDE PIM community. He still hasn't told us who that guy is. It's like Milton. I don't talk to anyone. So apparently no interaction with anyone else. Still significant contribution. Hell, maybe it's me. So this is the KDE PIM community in one visualization. There are many others, but what we're trying to say here is we have this unique thing where we're extremely well connected to an extremely broad set of people in what we do. And if you enter a free software project, you build connections to an amazing array of people. And those people represent opportunities, right? They have jobs, they have things you can learn from them. They live in places where you might want to go visit, right? We think that this is not something that is easy to get for other people, right? Unless you're in a community like ours, there's no way you will have friends in China and in India and all over the world and be able to just sleep on someone's couch. Who's slept on a KDE person's couch while traveling before? See? Same is actually true for careers, right? And there is nothing wrong, we think, in leveraging that to get somewhere with your life career-wise, right? Ask people, about job opportunities in their companies, or, what kinds of skills they might be looking for. There's nothing wrong with that. I even think we should be doing more of that. Help people that we know are good people into positions where they can make a difference.
And then the whole community, I would say, is a platform. So platform in that way is not the platform in a software way. So it's a platform to present yourself. That's what she's doing there. She's on that red carpet because she's presenting herself, because she's an actress. And we have the opportunity to present ourselves too. And we can take that along. So we can build up a reputation on doing something like usability, for example. So we should use all those opportunities and show what we have done there and present our skills. It's not about presenting yourself in, I'm the most pretty in the room, but it's about being knowledgeable and being capable. And if you combine that with using your network, I would say you're pretty set. But it's something to keep in mind.
This is something from Dungeons and Dragons, to come back to the role-playing thing. It's called the Halfling Dragon Principle, and it states that if you're in the company of a halfling and an ill-tempered dragon, remember you do not have to outrun the dragon. You have to outrun the halfling, right? Meaning, if you want to go into sales, right, or artwork or something other than hacking, or if you're currently a nurse and you want to go into community management, or if you're doing, Justin, what are you doing actually? Okay, so if you're in bioinformatics but you'd much rather do other stuff, you don't have to aim for the top spot, right? Not right away, maybe not at all, right? There's a tendency, especially among software people, to be totally perfectionist, musicians as well, by the way, right? They think that if they do something, it has to be like spot on, right? It has to be totally perfect right from the start. And that keeps them from exploring things and trying out new things and exploring aspects of their personality. So what we're trying to say here is, if you think you're a bad public speaker, as long as you're not the worst talk of the conference, right? Have a go, right? All right, we'll leave it at that. Yeah, if you have any questions or if you, I don't know, want to bribe us or something, those are our, by the way, very nicely aligned, I hope you noticed, email addresses. And finally, if you're a musician, we'd like to speak to you because both of our companies are hiring. Thank you very much.